Hey, this is Anney.
And this is Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff Mom Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio's How Stuff Works. Before we get into our topic today, which is an interview we're very excited about.
Yes, I'm so excited.
We did just want to say this episode may not be suitable for younger listeners. Yes. So I would recommend listening to it. Listeners, you may remember a couple of months ago, we did a classic episode with an updated intro about OSE. And I also guested on the podcast Tech Stuff to talk about that. And we thought that we would get someone who knew a little bit better.
Someone who actually knows a lot about it.
Yes. So we have with us Lora Haddock, founder and CEO of Lora DiCarlo. Hey, Lora, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi. It's really awesome to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you. Can you tell us, let's start with some basics.
Right.
Some basics first about yourself and then about OSE, the product that we're discussing today.
Okay, so like I said, my name is Lora Haddock. I'm the founder and CEO at Lora DiCarlo. Just for those of you that don't know, DiCarlo is actually a family name. So that's why it gets a little confusing. And my background is actually in healthcare. I spent over a decade in healthcare. I went into the Navy as a nurse. I ended up coming out on an honorable discharge to take care of my mother, but I ended up back in studying pre-med in Portland and kind of had an epiphany when I had an orgasm. And literally found myself laying on the floor, flopped off the side of the bed, staring at the ceiling like a total idiot, just going, how do I do that again?
That's amazing. I want to clap for that.
Yay! Right? So I remember laying there just thinking like that was amazing. And then I looked at, this partner that had helped me get there, and I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, how do I do that again by myself? And so what I ended up doing was actually I have an obsession with anatomy and physiology, being on the career track that I was at the time. And I started really diving into the physiology of orgasm, of erogenous physiology, and particularly how female parts work. And I wanted to find out, how could I do this again? And it came to be that there's no product on the market that actually delivers what I was after, and that was a blended orgasm. And a blended orgasm is when you stimulate both the clitoris or the glans clitoris, actually, the part that you do see that we're familiar with, the little man in the boat, and then the G spot. But what most people don't know is that that's all a part of the same erogenous physiology. The clitoris, the glans clitoris, and then there's actually wings and bulbs and all sorts of really neat physiology that branches out beneath the external anatomy of the vulva, just underneath the labia minora and the labia majora. And then there's a coalescence of nerves that bundles right on the anterior wall of the vaginal canal. So the front side of the inside of the vaginal canal. So what we're doing, when you get this blended orgasm, is you're stimulating literally the whole clitoris from the outside all the way to the inside. And it's not easy to do. It's basically the only way you can do it right now is if you have two really specific toys and some really acute knowledge about your own physiology and how to get there, or you have a really talented partner.
That sounds like a lot of work. That sounds like a lot of work.
Right, and neither of those are easy to come by. So
right.
I was like, this is ridiculous. There should be something that works for me and not just for me. So I started thinking how do I create something that does this, and what are the problems that I want to solve? And there were three big problems that I saw immediately. The first was I had toys. I have a treasure trove of toys, right? And there's a bunch of stuff in my little treasure chest that doesn't fit me. So I wanted to create something that fits a multitude of people. And the only way you can do that is if you collect data. I looked for the data. I looked for sizes. I looked for all of this this data around erogenous zones, and it doesn't exist. Because we don't talk about female sexuality. We don't talk about female pleasure because we prefer to demonize it.
Right.
And I remember looking through old anatomy physiology books when I was in school and just going, that's weird. Like, they talk about like how a man can, get hard. They talk about, the blood flow. They talk about the innervation. They talk about, how they orgasm. And then when you flip the page and you look at the female side, they talk about how we make babies and what bad things can happen to your uterus. And I'm just like, that's not cool.
Right.
So I wanted something that could fit both, like anybody. So I actually had to go ask people, where's your clitoris? How big is your clitoris? Where's your G-spot in relation to your vaginal canal? Like, all of these really kind of hilariously awkward questions that when you ask somebody, they just kind of look at you a little cross-eyed and you go, this is why. And then when you explain to them that I want to see if there's a trend in this data so I can design something, then they get really excited.
Yeah.
And people just are like, here, how do I do that? How
Right.
do I measure this for you?
Right.
Wait, when you're done with this, can I test it? Can I have one? And they're like,
I'm not
well.
I'm not going to lie. Annie and I have been discussing, like, how do we get one of these now?
Right. And I was like, at that point, I'm like, well, I'm just trying to dig up data right now. But, and this was about 2.5 years ago. But I ended up with over 200 data points. And I started seeing a trend in that data. The other two things that I wanted to address, the other two problems I wanted to address were I wanted to eliminate the use of vibration in this product because I wanted to do that in favor of biomimicry, or what's more commonly known as the mimicry of human motion. So I wanted it to feel and wanted somebody to have the experience of being with a human partner and for it to feel like a human partner. And the last thing I wanted absolutely was for it to be completely hands-free. And the reason for that is because as females or people with vaginas, we have the tendency to really be in a very emotional, very psychological state if we're going to orgasm. You have to really be able to concentrate, almost like a point of like being able to meditate or be really into like what you're doing. And I find that if you want to reach that state, you can't have anything in your hands. Like, you have to like totally like let go of your whole body. And let's like, to be honest, like having something hands-free is just way more fun anyway.
Yes.
So I collected all this data and I started creating this design in my head. And I ended up sitting across the table after getting a couple of recommendations with a professor of mechanical engineering at Oregon State University. And Oregon State University happens to be the top 4 robotics school graduate program in the country. And I didn't tell him like what we were going to talk about before I got there. I just showed up and I was like, okay, so vagina. And he was like, okay.
Amazing.
Right. And you're like, so orgasm, and I want to make an orgasm thing. And he's like, and I was like, but here's how I want to do it. And I literally slid across a document that had over 52 functional engineering specs in order to engineer this product. And he actually lit up. His name is Dr. John Parmigiani, and he completely lit up. And he's like, oh, engineering things. I can do this. This is cool. This is a neat problem. We should solve this problem. And I was like, you're damn right we should.
Yes.
So we actually, I had just founded the company. I founded the company in October 2017. So coming up on 2 years now, I guess. And we started an industry-funded research project with Oregon State that we still have going, which is awesome and hilarious. So we ended up with a whole bunch of students, mechanical engineering students that specialize in robotics and electrical engineering students and other PhDs that were like, wait, what are you doing? I want to sit in on this meeting. And we worked on that for about 6 months until we had proof of concept. And then we started working towards that prototype. And at that point, I started hiring some of these students. The first was actually Dr. Ada Rhodes Short, who was finishing her PhD at the time and came on with me as soon as she finished her dissertation. She came on full time, and she specializes and is an expert in AI and robotics. And today we're coming up probably in August, we'll have 19 folks on the payroll.
Nice.
As of August. And our director of engineering is, her name is Kim Porter, and she's been a veteran in mechanical engineering for nearly 30 years now. And she's worked with startups, she's brought products all the way to fruition and on to into the market. And that's what she's helping us do right now. And on our sales and marketing team, I've got some of the most amazing folks in the business. One was Sarah Brown, who we actually got over from Lalo, a competitor, early on. And we always joke that I headhunted her, and pretty much gave her no option, no other choice. I was like, no, you're coming on. Whatever you need, just please come and work with us. So our team is definitely, we're growing really fast, but what has really helped us to grow this fast is we have a very stringent set of core values that really dictates and guides our culture. And we have a very inclusive culture, but our values are respect, empowerment, and integrity. And for us, that creates a very inclusive culture. And we only hire folks that are a very good skill and psychological and personality fit, that get the message, that get the mission. And our mission is rooted in gender equity. We're not just here to make sex toys. We're here to change the game. We're here to change the face of business and change the face of technology, and see that half that face is women and people and minority folks and people of color, and actually see the whole playing field get leveled. And we're excited to be here. So we've actually taken that social mission and put it on equal footing with profitability, and it's doing well so far. But right now we've got, they will be launched this fall, and we're going like gangbusters, like absolutely screaming with our hair on fire just about every day. But everybody shows up and everybody's happy to be here. That's for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys raised about, it says 2 million. Was it 3 million? I'm trying to keep track because
we've to date it's about 3.2 million.
Wow.
We just closed. Actually, it's not technically. We just followed up with another 2 million tranche of funding.
Wow.
That should get us all the way through launch. And we are looking at doing a pre-sale this summer. The date is TBA, but when we do, we're hoping that will be able to inject some more funds into marketing, because our investors and my team, we're very intent on hitting the market very hard.
Right.
And not just making a splash, but creating a tsunami.
Right.
Sorry, I said an F word.
It's fine. I do it all the time.
You bleep that out.
I do it all the time. But yeah, that's phenomenal. Also, just the sheer creativity behind this is enthralling. As we're sitting here, I'm reading through all the stuff, and you're telling me all the people that are involved. Is incredible, and how many women are coming together to be like, yeah, let's talk about the fact that we want pleasure too, which I adore.
Well, and it's not just women. It's, a good portion of our team are male. Mm-hmm. We have, we have a transgender on stuff. We have a couple queer folks on stuff. People of all different walks of life. Everybody, from a gender standpoint, we kind of span the gamut. We from a personality standpoint, everyone from very extroverted to very introverted. So we're really focused on diversifying our thought process and how we approach problems. And one thing I always tell all of our team is if you don't agree with me, say something.
Yeah.
If you don't understand, or you don't think that the way that the direction that we're taking makes sense, say something. Challenge me. Right. Argue with me. Bring your thoughtful ideas to the table and challenge me, because that's the only way that we're going to continually innovate and create new products that speak to everyone. That's the only way that as a company we're going to absolutely blow this thing out of the water. And And it's hard because especially when you have females on the team who are used to getting shut down or marginalized and not being able to have as much of a voice at the table, you have to encourage that thought process. You have to encourage them to challenge you almost.
Yeah.
And it's part of it is a little bit it's a little saddening when I think about the fact that we have to talk about it on a daily basis, but I also understand that it's really empowering knowing that we are creating that kind of empowerment with folks where they start to understand I do have a voice and what I say does matter, and my experience is amazing, and that's, like I said, it spans the gamut across multiple different threads of diversity, whether it's ethnicity or even religion or gender, sex preference, personality type. Bringing all of these different voices to the table and allowing them to have a voice is what is allowing us to innovate so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
I do.
I just had a moment of like taking it all in.
Yeah. And like you were saying earlier, you're here to change the game, and we all know that sometimes certain folks don't like change. So
in fact, we get a lot of regression with those certain folks.
Yes.
Case in point, in the last month or so.
Exactly. So we touched on it in the update we did around this, but could you talk about the whole kerfuffle of CS? And I know there's an update with it recently.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we got so for those of and you guys, you covered CES or covered all of that debacle. So what happened in the aftermath? So CES originally took away an award that they had given us a month later, and we fought them really hard and pointed out everything that was very biased about what they were doing, and it was very arbitrary and capricious, really. There was no basis for their reasoning, and we pointed that out, but they stood their ground and they didn't give us our award back. So we decided to, create a press release that got picked up quite a bit, a little bit more than I think I was prepared for. I do remember sitting in what our publicist has now dubbed the PR war room, when we did probably close to 15 back-to-back interviews in an office in Las Vegas, where at the end of the day, she just like slammed her hands on the table and she's like, holy crap. That was probably, I think, maybe the second most insane PR war room I've ever experienced. And I remember at some point during the day just asking her, Rachel, can I please just go to the bathroom? No, not yet. We don't have time. And I was like, okay.
You had to fire through.
Yeah, it picked up. And the reason it picked up is because society's tired of the demonization of female sexuality. People are tired of and right now we're seeing such a huge outcry about, the removal of female bodily autonomy with these abortion laws. And I don't think things are going to go the way that some of these lawmakers think they are, because people are tired and they're ready and willing to fight. So when we did that drop, people were so ready to fight and get behind us and raise awareness and lift that voice up and we had, I think, over 200,000 social shares. The amount of coverage that we got was absolutely mind blowing. I ended up writing an op-ed for the Washington Post. We were in the New York Times. I ended up getting invited to speak at the Forbes Women Conference in Israel, and it's just been. I often say it's like sitting on a rocket ship and drinking from a fire hose and then trying to make a peanut butter and banana sandwich at the same time. It's great. It's fun. So what most people didn't know, though, is that we were still fighting in the eves. And we actually, I got an email one day from from Gary Shapiro, who is the CEO of the Consumer Technology Association, the CTA, that governs the CES show, the Consumer Electronics Show. And it was just a request to talk. So we put together a meeting where we could sit down with the CTA and my team and via conference call. And the first thing, Gary got on the phone, and the first thing he said was, "I owe you all a very big apology."
Wow.
And I was definitely taken aback. But when we realized, and I was very thankful that such a large association was willing to sit down with the little guy, with the startups, and admit, an oversight, admit to bias, maybe to that they had truly made a mistake, not in giving us the award in the first place, but made the mistake in taking it away. And the one thing that when I realized that they were going to give the award back was we said we really aren't comfortable taking this back unless we have the ability to sit down with you at the same table and talk about policy change and talk about more inclusive language and contribute to that more inclusive language. So yes, we got the award back, but I think the real win is the fact that we're sitting down with them right now and we're talking about how to make a safer space for females at CES, how to make safer space for all genders at CES in 2020 and beyond. So we're talking about those policies. We're talking about language and inclusivity within language. And I don't want to get 100% on board yet because it's not finished. So that remains to be seen when they publish those rules and those policies. And I really want to see how CES 2020, pans out. But this is what we were talking about. We want to see change, and we've got our sights set on some very big issues when we're done here. And I think that's actually what really drives not just me, but just about everybody that works at Lora DiCarlo is the fact that we feel like we have purpose. It's not just about making amazing technology and creating tech that isn't just used in sex toys. It's used. You can use this tech, and we can commercialize tech that's never been utilized before, and we're super excited about that. But to also have a mission that stands for gender equality and equity, I should say, that's what really gets us fired up. Because it's not just about women being able to use, or people with vaginas being able to use sex toys. It's about the acceptance. It's about removing the stigma around sex. And my true belief is that when we can, you set up a disclaimer when we started this podcast that was, just so you know, kids, if you're listening, you might want to warn your children and not let your kids listen to this. And the fact is, until we can talk to our kids about sexuality and about pleasure and about accepting their sexuality, their preference, their gender, you don't have to make it explicitly sexual in order for a kid to understand that the way they feel is okay and the way they're made is perfectly acceptable. And when we start teaching our children about the fact that gender is fluid, the way that we approach gender is so binary, and we're getting to this point where we're realizing, me as an individual, I'm not 100% female. I've got some seriously male traits, or masculine traits, that I should say. And I know male friends of mine, even guys that work in this company, that they have quite a few feminine traits. The fact is, gender is not fluid. We have all sorts of different masculine and feminine traits, and that spans the gamut. And when we can start telling our children that that's okay, that's when we start to eliminate biases, and we start creating gender equity for the next generation, and then feminism is no longer needed.
That is powerful, which is why we didn't interrupt at all.
No.
We're both sitting here nodding our heads at each other like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Mm-hmm. We have a little bit more for you listeners, but first we're going to pause for a quick break for a word from our sponsors. And we're back. Thank you, sponsor.
So as you were talking about with the new laws that are happening, especially about the female body, what would be your advice for, because obviously you've thought about this, you've progressed, trying to break barriers within the engineering field, technological field, all of that. What would you say to women who are trying to make change, but feel like they really can't because they're in their individual home or something, or in a state like we're in the South, which has one of the more rigid, well, not just all the South, but in Georgia has a very rigid policy that was signed in. What would you say to those people? Like, these are the ways that you look and see in trying to find change instead of just doing the minimal. Does that make sense? Because as you said, your toy, your sex. Is it a sex toy? Is that what I call it?
It's a piece of technological sexual satisfaction.
There we go.
There we go. Because I'm like, this doesn't sound right. This is too big for that type of title.
We even talked about that.
We call it sex tech.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will now take that. Sex tech. But beyond that, you started seeing that you could break some grounds and break some biases, as well as be people who are a force to activism in all the different ways. That's not just sex tech, focused. I don't know how to say it.
You made a very funny gesture when you said that.
I did. I made a
Samantha.
weird gesture because I'm trying to figure out how to say it. Apologies.
So I think first and foremost, like the thing that I would say is that anybody listening, like you got to do your homework. You need to educate yourself about what's actually going on with the laws. And I remember, like, even a few years ago, even when I was a midshipman, when I was in the Navy, like I didn't really pay a lot of attention to the world around me. And I would implore people to do a little bit of homework. I mean, get on your phone and Google it. The fact is, the lawmakers that are creating these anti-abortion bills don't know a thing about not even just female physiology, but physiology, period. These men are making our laws that take away our bodily autonomy, not just ours. If this goes up and actually ends up changing the language at Roe v. Wade, this doesn't just affect females, this affects everyone's bodily autonomy. And what bodily autonomy is let's say you go to the hospital and your brother needs a blood transfusion and you have the same type blood. Let's say you hate your brother and you don't want to get him your blood. If we change the language at Roe v. Wade, they can take your blood forcibly. That's what we're talking about. Those are the kind of changes that we're talking about. We're not just talking about taking away a woman's right to make choices about her own physical body, which I'm sorry is your property and no one else's. People need to understand that the people that are making these laws don't know the first thing about human physiology. They're making insinuations about female bodies that don't make a damn bit of sense. There was a Texas representative that seemed to think that abortion providers actually cut into women's bodies. Like, he actually thought that an abortion was a cesarean section, which is absolutely asinine. There was another one who, another Texas lawmaker who said that getting a rape kit exam was they could just go in there and get a woman cleaned out. I think he literally said clean a woman out to end the pregnancy. Yes. And I'm sure you guys know the infamous one of the Missouri congressman that said that if it's really a legitimate rape, that the female body has ways of shutting it down. Right. Yeah. Give me a freaking break. This is absolutely ridiculous. These men are making our laws about our body. Right. And I'm sorry, I don't care if you're all the way, if you're completely liberal or completely conservative. The fact is, when you look at a man making a law about your body, no matter what your stance is, whether you're religious or whether you are 100% completely conservative, when you look at the fact that these men are the ones making the laws about your body, and you realize you kind of know.
Amen.
That's the problem. So then it comes to start doing the homework about like how can you make change. There are a lot of petitions going around right now. There are a lot of ways to if you have the funding available, you have the funds available, donate to the Yellow Fund, donate to these. There are lists that are trying to help women get elected to Congress or into all sorts of government seats. But there are all sorts of ways for you to get involved and even just add your name to a list. Like share something, share like a way for somebody to get like spread around the awareness that we need funding for this. The only way we make an impact is if you vote with your dollars, and you have to actually get out and freaking vote.
Right.
Please get out and vote.
Right.
Because the last thing that I want to see is, people think, oh, well, Trump's not going to get reelected because he's a maniac. I'm sorry. The people that start thinking that are the people that don't go and vote because they don't think that that's a possibility. I need you to go vote.
Right.
You need to go vote. You need to vote for our bodily autonomy, period, end of story. And it's really frustrating because I know that there are a lot of people that I've spoken to that are like, oh yeah, I just never voted. Like I didn't actually think he would win.
I heard that so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, well, if you don't think he would win, or if you don't think that the person you think is a terrible idea for office is going to win, then go vote anyway.
Right.
So it's and as far as being like my personal opinion is in the middle. My personal opinion, it absolutely blows me away that you can call these people pro-lifers, because if we're going to let a 10-year-old child die in custody, that's not pro-life.
Right.
If we're gonna beat transgender people until they literally die,
right,
that's not pro-life. If we're going to murder countless people of color, that's not pro-life.
right.
And forced pregnancy is not pro-life. It is the removal of bodily autonomy. It is anti-choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I got so insanely riled up about it, but everybody here is so
right.
Is so on edge about it.
Honestly, I don't think you could get away with not feeling some type of emotion with what's happening, whether it's one side or the other, because it is a really heated issue, and it is about your personal rights when it comes down to it. And so you've got to be angry because it affects you. It affects, again, everyone, as you said.
Yeah.
And I love that perspective.
Yeah. And it's and I don't think people realize that. Like we have, I've spoken to, actually we have a general counsel available that I can talk to about just about anything all the time. That's a part of an accelerator that I'm involved with. And, even I didn't realize the kind of effects that this change of language could have on Roe v. Wade. The fact is, they've changed this language. This changes everyone's rights, not just females' ability to get an abortion. It goes so much deeper than that, and it's not pretty. I guarantee you, if people truly understood the depth, the weight of this issue, and how their male rights will be taken away as well, people would probably look at this a little bit differently.
Yeah, I would agree. And that kind of segues are always fun for topics like this,
right?
But that kind of relates back to something that I wanted to ask, which is why is talking about something like Oze, having open conversations about it, and female pleasure as opposed to male pleasure, which is just understood to be a right, but female pleasure for so long has been, no, that's taboo. We don't talk about it.
Again, as we saw on Twitter, I made mention that men literally tweet back at women saying, it's not true women like sex. Women don't have work. Talking about the fact that it's it just can't happen. And it blows my mind. It's 2019.
Yeah.
How do you not understand what's happening?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. It's, well, and like I said, I talked about it a little bit earlier. It's about education. It's about understanding that female pleasure is okay. It's acceptable. And the way that we have continuously demonized female sexuality for so long is simply unacceptable. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Madonna whore complex, but that's basically the inability for people to stay in a committed, loving relationship, because we have this obsession with we see women as either saintly Madonnas or total prostitutes. Right. And we view women as, and we teach women that they are supposed to be completely proper, never have sex, never think about sex, never do anything sexual, be completely chaste. And but when you get married, you're supposed to be a total whore in the bed, and you're supposed to know exactly what you're doing.
Right.
But we don't even get the opportunity to even talk about it, let alone experience our own bodies or explore our own bodies. So personally, let's be honest, every single person listening to this podcast touched themselves before they were 18. And there's nothing wrong with young people exploring their own bodies on their own terms. But we talk to kids, we talk to people like there's something terribly wrong with trying to understand your own body or understand your own pleasure. And when we do that, we demonize sexuality, we demonize pleasure, we make people think it's not okay, particularly for females, to understand their own bodies, to love their own bodies. And when we do that, we create a very binary chasm between men and women, where women are not allowed and men are. And that sexual, that approach to sexuality doesn't just stop at sexuality. It is completely systemic throughout the way that we approach gender. And that affects the way that we approach women in the boardroom. That affects the way that we approach women on the train, the way we approach women in the household, the way we approach women with healthcare, and the way that the way that doctors speak to them. And so, yeah, it starts with sex. It starts with understanding that your body is perfect the way it is, and the way you identify with your body and your sexuality, your gender, your preference is perfectly normal. And there's nothing wrong with it, and you should explore it. So that's a big part of our mission, is to really push for people to understand that it's okay to explore that sexuality, because that is liberating. It's empowering. Understanding that you have complete control over your own pleasure, that's empowering, because that ends up trickling down to the way that you act, the way you walk around in the boardroom, the way you walk in the grocery store, the way you talk to your doctor, the way that you talk to your husband, or, even the way you make dinner. So, and it's not just for men and women, it's for people that might not identify as either. It's about understanding how you identify and your pleasure. And no one's the same. And accepting that we don't get to make decisions about somebody else's personal preference or identity, and that the only control you have is over your own preference and identity. That's when we can actually start to understand each other a lot better.
Yeah. I'm just sitting here with you up. Nodding heads. We're just nodding heads, essentially.
Well, okay. So what we're doing with OSE is, why this is really significant, is this product literally helps you to learn. It teaches you. It helps to educate you about your own body. Because what happens is you put this inside, it actually conforms to the interior anatomy so that it fits, and so then it stays put. So and all of the functions, the G-spot stimulation, the clitoral stimulation, the labial stimulation, all of these are independent of one another. So they are completely customizable. So what this allows you to do is it allows you to learn more about your own body and about your own pleasure and how you get there. So when you can start to do that and learn more about your own pleasure, then you can take that knowledge and you can tell your partner, this is exactly what I like. It's amazing. And you can now help me get there. So what that does is it actually brings people closer together. It allows people to understand one another better. So when I realized, oh crap, I'm going to be the CEO of a sex toy company. This is going to be interesting. With like, but it was a little unnerving because, you kind of have to reserve yourself to, understanding this is the rest of my life now. I'm forever going to be known as the sex toy CEO, probably. But when I started to understand the ability to teach, the ability for education, the ability for gender equity within this space because of this education, and being able to help couples and people understand each other better, and hopefully erase those sexual stigmas, that's when I got really excited. I was like, yes, I'm so signed on now. So and I think that's actually, we've run into that issue a couple times with when we hire employees. We find the most perfect fit, people that have like the perfect skills. And I love my team so much. They're so amazing. I could get like teared up about it. I love them. They're absolutely incredible. Like a couple of times when people have come on, they're a little bit apprehensive about the fact that, it's sex tech. It's technically the adult industry. Then we sit there and we talk about how this particular product can change how we view sex and how we don't want to be a part of the adult industry, how we want to break that mold. We want to be mainstream. We want to teach people about pleasure, about sex, without having this stigma wrapped around it, and about what we want to do in bigger spaces where gender equity is involved. And we talk about the values as a company, about respect, empowerment, and integrity, and about how that drives every decision that we make, including the one to release the press release about CES, including the one that drove us to say we don't really want the award back unless we can actually make policy changes. Those are scary decisions to make. But when we know that drives those values drive your decisions, those really amazing values drive your decisions, then you can never make the wrong choice. And so when we've had that talk with new employees coming on, as soon as we talk about that, it's pretty much hard to not get them to sign on the dotted line.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing and fun. But like I said, it's kind of positioning yourself and trying to know like how deep do you go, how much do you envelop yourself in controversial issues like abortion,
right.
like being like, but I mean, those are, as a business, extremely touchy issues to get involved in. Every single time we've had the chance to make a decision about whether or not we do get involved in something like that, it's always been, yes, we do, because that's what we believe in. And it's always been the right choice. And I think the fact that, and it's not just the fact that people respond to it positively because they believe in the same choices. It's that we truly believe it's the right choice. And I think that even our investors believe that it's the right choice. They see the positivity and the profitability in being an ethical company that has beliefs that are rooted in true equity, in seeing men and women and minorities and people with handicaps, everybody be able to sit at the same table and make decisions about products that change our lives, and make decisions about policies that change our lives. They see the good in that. They see that that's the right thing to do. So it's, like I said, it's been a wild ride, but we're not done yet.
No, not at all. We have a little bit more to discuss, but first we're going to pause for one more quick break for word from our sponsors. And we're back. Thank you, sponsor. And I feel like every week we get an email from a listener about bro gamer, brotopia, things like that. And it sounds like you and everyone on your team are really spearheading like a space, a more inclusive space. So could you talk a little bit about ways that people can do that, what you think is going on with inclusivity and diversity? Because I do think that we're like at a point of, I'm hoping, or at a point where at least talking about it. And any advice for people out there?
I think we definitely are at a space where I think it's actually popular to talk about it. It's just the issue is, do people truly understand how to pursue creating an inclusive and diverse space, or do they just want to talk about it?
Right.
So part of what we're very committed to doing is in part of like the definition of one of our values is about being biased towards action. So it's making sure that we're not just talking about things. So part of the definition of integrity is that, you know, we're always truthful. We're truthful with ourselves. We're truthful with our community, and we hold ourselves accountable. But we always move with a bias towards action. So, like I said, we can talk about creating these spaces, but if you're not doing anything, you're not doing anything. So, truly understanding how to do that is creating framework. You have to create a framework. You have to create those values. You have to understand what it's like to be in somebody's shoes who is in a minority space. And you may not be able to truly understand what it's like being in their shoes, but what you can do is create the safest space possible for those individuals. Because somebody that doesn't feel safe, one, isn't going to sign on to your company, but two, they're never going to thrive. Then we're just talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You don't feel safe, you don't have a roof over your head, you don't have food in your stomach, you can never thrive. So what we're trying to do is create a space where it's safe for people to talk about their opinions, about their thoughts, about their values, about their culture, about like how they view religion or what their religion is, and truly be open-minded and never pass judgment on anyone, but always talk about ideas and talk about values. And we approach ideas, and we might attack ideas, but we never attack the individual. We might say, hey, I'm really curious about this idea, or how this happens, or, you know, yada, yada. But you never attack the individual. And also creating a safe space too is also understanding that sometimes people don't want to talk about their culture. They will bring that to you. Sometimes people don't want to talk about the fact that they're thinking about having a kid because it makes them feel unsafe. Sometimes people don't want to talk about how they do their hair because it makes them feel ostracized. So understanding that if putting yourself in their shoes, and understanding the things that might make them feel unsafe when you just want to have a casual conversation. When people want to have a casual conversation about something that makes them feel comfortable, that could actually make somebody else feel very uncomfortable. And to me, that's selfish. When you just approach somebody and you say, hey, so who braids your hair? Maybe they don't want to talk about who braids their hair. Maybe you should let them talk about it when they're comfortable talking about it. Maybe you shouldn't be asking females, so how many kids are you planning on having? Maybe I'm not planning on having any. Maybe I was 7. Who says it's your business? Who says that that's going to impact the way I work? So to us, it's really about just creating a safe space where people feel like they can live their best lives and they can have their own opinions and thoughts and viewpoints without ever feeling like they might be personally attacked for those thoughts and viewpoints. Because to be very honest, part of the reason I'm hiring those people is because I want those thoughts and viewpoints. I want these ideas that aren't in alignment with my own, so that I can think about how we can change things for the better. Because if we keep innovating inside of a tunnel, we're not going to go anywhere. So, I mean, I don't know if you've heard the term. I think it's homophily. It's a tendency for people to only hire people that, or associate with people that look like them and talk like them and sound like them and went to the same schools and, you know, the same color skin, the same type of hair. Like, and I've seen people do that. They hire in a funnel, and you never get anywhere because everybody has the same damn line of thought. And so understanding that, yes, it's not just about diversity. It's not just about creating equity and creating inclusive spaces. It's about understanding the impact of having that diverse space and having a safe space for people to truly innovate on their own and be able to feel like they can have their ideas and their thoughts and not feel attacked. So I guess I'm going to come full circle. People talk about diversity. They talk about inclusivity. And a lot of the time I feel like people are talking out of their ass.
Preach, sister. Preach it. No, I love it.
It's true.
I love it.
Yeah.
Did you ever imagine you would be here out of curiosity?
No. You know what? Actually, not here. No. I always wanted to do. I was one of those people that I went to school. I got a full ride scholarship as a nursing as a Navy nurse, and I had to drop out halfway through. So I'm one of those kids that I didn't finish school, and it was partially because I was like, is this really what I want to do? Maybe this is what I want to do. I never quite knew what I wanted to do. All I knew is that I wanted to lead, and that I had some opinions that people seemed to really garner to, and you know, people tended to want to follow me, and I at some point I realized I wanted to be in a position of leadership, and I literally one day I was like, I think I just want to be a CEO. I mean, they do all of the things. They're never bored. That's obvious because they're totally overworked. So that sounds like a great idea. And I ended up as an executive assistant for a few months for a different company. And I realized, yeah, I bet I could do this better. And probably about 6 months after that, I founded Lora DiCarlo. And I feel like I was the kid that never knew what I wanted to do. And I think at the same time, I always knew what I wanted to do. I just couldn't actually define it. Who goes to school or who grows up in elementary school or even in high school and goes, I'm going to be a CEO of something or other at some point in my life? You don't.
Right.
But I do know that I wanted to lead. And I know that the reason that I went into the Navy is because I wanted to lead. I wanted to become an officer. And that wasn't in the cards for me. But I knew that I still wanted that, and I kept driving towards it. And like I said, nobody ever just goes, "Oh, I think I'm going to be the CEO of a sex toy company someday." But it was the biggest moment I realized that this is exactly what I was meant to do. Was when I realized the kind of change that we could proffer for the rest of society and the kind of impact that we could create. And that really kind of revolutionized the way that I looked at it. And I think I've embraced it from the get-go, and I'm just like, I'm either balls in or I'm completely out and we're going to fail. And we've never looked back, and we've been going really hard since day one.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people can relate to what you just said of feeling like you never know what you want to do, and at the same time, you know there's something, you just don't know what it is. And I think a lot of listeners will find comfort, or at least like, oh, I'm not the only one that feels that way from hearing that.
Yeah.
Before we close out, is there anything else you want to include? Any questions we didn't ask that we should have asked?
I think actually just to, so just to remind everyone, we are going to do that pre-sale this summer. So that might be the only way that you can get your hands on a say before we do the official launch, which will be this fall. So if you go to our website at LoraDiCarlo.com, that's LORA, DiCarlo, DICARLO.com. You can actually sign up for our newsletter.
All right, that's what I was
and if you sign up for our newsletter, then you probably also get a little bit more information about the other crazy we're doing. So that, and you'll be notified about the pre-sale. And then I think the other thing is, for folks that are listening that might not know what they want to do, or they might be down on themselves about, maybe not finishing school or not feeling like they know what they want to do with their lives or not having direction. There was a lot of times where I felt like I had no idea where I was going, and I didn't have any direction. And I'm definitely a perfectionist, and I hated that. I felt like it made me less of a person. And I know that most of my life, and then especially in the first year and all the way up until now, I still experience imposter syndrome like crazy, like this inability to understand how powerful I can be and how much experience I've already garnered in the last few decades. And I don't give myself enough credit on a daily basis. And particularly as females, we do that to ourselves. So for the people that don't feel like they're enough, you definitely are. And it's there. It's about getting to that point and realizing your dream, and absolutely not giving up. Just don't give up, and don't stay quiet if you believe in something, because I didn't, and I still never thought that we would get here, but we did, and we're still going. And that's what it takes.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
And I know for some people, they hear it, and when you're in that like low place, and you just think, oh no, I don't need someone else telling me that I have to keep trying. But it's true. It's true.
It is. And I'll tell you, like in before I founded the company, like there were months at a time where I would cry on a daily basis, literally on a daily basis. There were people that basically told me, "Oh, that's a cute idea," when I talked to them about my business plan.
Oh,
I was like, "You know what? Eat a dick," right?
Right. Amen. Once again.
So, and it's not easy. It's never, and it doesn't get easier. I'm going to be really honest, but it does become more and more and more rewarding. And I've always felt like I've had purpose, but today I feel like I have more purpose, and I definitely have more to deal with, and definitely the imposter syndrome doesn't go away. It doesn't get easier, but it sure as hell is rewarding.
There you go.
Beautiful.
There you go. We've been so excited to have you, and we should say, this isn't a sponsored episode. We're just fans.
Right.
And we also think it's important to discuss, like, we've been talking a lot about female pleasure lately and how it's so demonized.
Stigmatized.
Yeah. So, yeah, not a sponsored episode, just fans.
Yeah, I'm going to go put my name on that waiting list somewhere so I can find that.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. I kept telling Annie, I was like, we got to talk to her. We got to talk to her. I need to know. I need to know when it's going to come out. I'm a little too excited, maybe.
I've been I'm on a rampage this morning too. I'm just like roar and
perfect
on all of the issues. So
love it.
Yeah, good fit. Good fit.
Yes.
Yeah. Samantha always gives away her scheme on air. I don't know why you do that.
I do, don't I?
You do.
Like,
you always give away your plan, your master plan.
This is why I'm not a good nemesis for anyone. Because you're already going to know how to defeat me.
No, I think that's the perfect nemesis. So, Lora, I know you gave the website. Is there any other place you want to shout out where people can find you, or any other resources or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're on social media, and we're growing really fast there too. I was really pleased. We sat down during a marketing meeting and was like, "Holy moly, really? That's great." But you can find us on Instagram and on Twitter at Lora DiCarlo. Again, that's LORA DICARLO _HQ. And you can find me personally. I'm linked to both. And my last name is Haddock. probably actually going to change my name to DiCarlo because people are really confused about it. It's my family name anyway. But people are calling me Miss DiCarlo all the time. I'm like, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're also on Facebook. Come and find us because we do have some pretty funny shit that we put up, and we do talk about some of the hard issues. And like I said, I've got a great social media team that we're putting together, and our digital marketing team is pretty amazing as well. So they've always got really great content. I'm just like, yes, arms up in the air, please put that up. So
awesome. Well,
it's fun.
Yeah, sounds fun.
Yeah, I want to be on that team.
Yeah. Oh, hey, wait a minute.
I'm sorry. What?
You should definitely check that out, listeners. You can also find us on Instagram at Stuff I've Never Told You and on Twitter at MomStuffPodcast. And you can email us at stuffmediamomstuff@iheartmedia.com. Thank you so much, Lora, for joining us.
Yes.
Thank you both.
This has been the best.
Awesome.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
I know. I can't wait. We're getting so close, and I'm just like,
it's pretty much selling itself right now, right?
I'm just a ball of nerves pretty much all day, every day lately, but it's, I think it's all good. It's all good things.
All good things.
Yeah.
Thanks as always to our super producer, Andrew Howard.
Yeah,
and
Andrew.
Thanks to you for listening. Stuff Mom Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio's How Stuff Works. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.